Hello, Mr. Daniels, back with Stargirl, Chapter 26. And, wait, who is this?
It's Hillary Kimball, and I am here to shun you, Mr. Daniels.
So, Hillary, if you're here to shun me, you are not supposed to speak to me. I do believe the definition of shunning would be to ignore me completely.
Oh my gosh, I don't like you at all. I'm out of here. Goodbye.
Okay, well, that's that. Let's go ahead and read Chapter 26, and, hopefully Hillary can do better with her shunning. Maybe she'll shun Stargirl in this chapter. Let's read. Usually I saw her in the courtyard before school, but that day I didn't. I usually passed her between classes at least once or twice before lunch. Not that day. In fact, when I looked over to her table at lunch, there was Dory Dilson, as usual, but someone else was sitting with her. No Stargirl in sight. Coming out of the lunchroom, I heard laughter behind me, and then a voice. Stargirl's. What do you have to do to get somebody's attention around here? I turned, but it wasn't her. The girl standing grinning in front of me wore jeans and sandals, had burnt red nails and lipstick, painted eyes, finger rings, toe rings, hoop earrings I could put my hand through, hair. I gawked as the students swarmed past. She made a clownish grin. She was beginning to look vaguely familiar. Tentatively, I whispered, Stargirl? She battered her chocolatey eyelashes. Stargirl? What kind of a name is that? My name's Susan. And just like that, Stargirl was gone, replaced by Susan. Susan Julia Caraway. The girl she might have been all along. I couldn't take my eyes off her. She cradled her books in her arms. The sunflower canvas bag was gone. The rat was gone. The ukulele was gone. She turned around slowly from my open mouth, dumbstruck inspection. Nothing goofy, nothing different I could see. She looked magnificently, wonderfully, gloriously ordinary. She looked like 100 other girls at Micah High. Stargirl had vanished into a sea of them, and I was thrilled. She slid a stick of chewing gum into her mouth and chewed away noisily. She winked at me. She reached out and tweaked my cheek the way my grandmother would and said, What's up, cutie pie? I grabbed her right there outside the lunchroom in the swarming mob. I didn't care if others were watching. In fact, I hoped that they were. I grabbed her and I squeezed her, and I'd never been so happy, so proud in my life. We sailed through time. We held hands in the hallways, on the stairs, in the courtyard. In the lunchroom, I grabbed her and pulled her over to our table. I looked to invite Dory Dilson too, but she was gone. I sat there grinning while Kevin and Susan gabbed and gossiped over their sandwiches. They joked about her disastrous appearance on the hot seat. Susan suggested that I should go on the hot seat one of these days, and Kevin said no, he's too shy. And I said not anymore, and we all laughed. And it was true. I didn't walk, I strutted. I was Susan Caraway's boyfriend. Me. Really? That Susan Caraway? The one with the tiny barrettes and toe rings? Yep, that's the one. My girlfriend. Call me Mr. Susan. I started saying we instead of I, as in we'll meet you there, or we like fajitas. Whenever I could, I said her name out loud like blowing bubbles. The rest of the time I said it to myself. Susan. Susan. We did our homework together. We hung out with Kevin. Instead of following strangers around, we went to the movies and plunged our hands together into the $6 super tub of popcorn. Instead of shopping for African violets, we shopped for Cinnabons and licked icing from each other's fingers. We went into Pizza. We walked past the bulletin board inside the door. We shared a pizza, half pepperoni, half anchovies. Anchovies? Ugh, I said. What's wrong with anchovies, she said. How can you eat them? Nobody eats anchovies. I was sort of kidding, but her face was serious. Nobody? Nobody I know. She picked up the anchovies from her slices and dumped them into her water glass. I tried to stop her. Hey! She pushed my hand away. She dropped the last anchovy into the glass. I don't want to be like nobody. On the way out, we ignored the bulletin board. She was mad for shopping. It was as if she had just discovered clothes. She bought shirts and pants and shorts and costume jewelry and makeup. I began to notice all the items of clothing had one thing in common. They all had the designer's name plastered prominently on them. She seemed to buy not for color or style, but for designer label size. She constantly quizzed me about what other kids would do, would buy, would say, would think. She invented a fictitious person she called Evelyn Everybody. Would Evelyn like this? Would Evelyn do that? Sometimes she misfired, as with laughing. For several days she was on a laughing jag. She didn't just laugh, she boomed. Heads turned in the lunchroom. I was trying to work up the nerve to say something when she looked at Kevin and me and said, "Would Evelyn laugh this much?" Kevin stared at his sandwich. I sheepishly shook my head. The laughing stopped, and from that moment on, she did a perfect imitation of a sullen, pout-lipped teenager. In every way, she seemed to be a typical, ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill teenager. And it wasn't working. At first, I neither noticed nor much cared that the shunning continued. I was too busy being happy that she was, as I saw it, now one of us. My only regret was we could not play the basketball season over again. In my mind's eye, I pictured her aiming her incredible zeal and energy excessively at the electrons. We could have won games on her cheering alone. It was she who said it first. "They still don't like me." We were playing outside the TV studio after school. As usual, people were passing by as if we weren't there. Her lip quivered. "What am I doing wrong?" Tears made her eyes even larger. I squeezed her hand. I told her to give it some time. I pointed out that the state basketball finals would take place in Phoenix that Saturday, and that would end the season and clear the way for cheerleading crimes to be forgotten. Her mascara was muddy. I'd seen her sad many a times before, but always for someone else. This was different. This was for herself, and I was powerless to help. I could not find it in me to cheer up the cheerleader. That night we did homework together at her house. I ducked into her room to check out her happy wagon. There were only 2 stones in it. When I came to school the next day, there was something different about the buzz in the courtyard. The arriving students were milling about, some roaming at random, some in clusters, but as I approached, there seemed to be a distinct clearing around the palmetto. I wandered in that direction, and through the crowd I could see that someone, Susan, was seated on the bench. She sat upright and smiling. She was holding a foot-long stick shaped like a claw on one end. Around her neck, dangling on a string, was a sign that read, "Talk to me and I'll scratch your back." She was getting no takers. No one was within 20 feet of her. Quickly, I turned away. I walked back through the crowd. I pretended I was looking for someone. I pretended I hadn't seen. I prayed for the bell to ring. When I saw her later that morning, the sign was gone. She said nothing about it. Neither did I. Next morning, she came running at me in the courtyard. Her eyes were bright for the first time in days. She grabbed me with both hands and shook me. "It's going to be okay. It's going to end. I had a vision." She told me about it. She had gone to her enchanted place after dinner the day before, and that's where the vision had come to her. She had seen herself returning in triumph from the Arizona State's oratorical contest. She had won first prize, best in the state. When she returned, she got a hero's welcome. The whole school greeted her in the parking lot, just like in the assembly in the film. There were streamers and confetti and tooting kazoos and horns blaring, and the mayor of the city council were on hand, and they had a parade right then and there. And she rode high on the back seat of a convertible, held up by her winner's silver plate for all to see, and the happy faces of her classmates flashed in the sparkling trophy. She told me this, and she threw up her arms and shouted, "I'm going to be popular!" The state contest was a week away. Every day she practiced her speech. One day she called over little Peter Sinkowitz and his playmates, presented the speech to us in front of her steps. We applauded and whistled. She bowed grandly, and I too began to see her vision. I saw the streamers flying, and I heard the crowd cheering, and I believed. Wow, almost seems like Stargirl dressed up for Halloween here. What do you guys think of the new Stargirl, or excuse me, Susan Caraway, changing her name? How dare you, Stargirl? Ladies, would you do that? You know, like, do you ever find yourself switching personalities to fit in with the crowd? I don't know. This sounds definitely not like Stargirl. How many people think this is going to last? Do you think Stargirl's going to come to her senses? Do you think Leo's going to feel guilty? Man, do you think Mr. Daniel's going to ask too many questions? Yeah, we'll just stop there. Finishing chapter 26, on to 27 to find out what this new Susan is going to do. Thank you so much for listening to me on YouTube. God bless everyone.